Hey man, how's it going? What's up? How's everything? Alright, so I haven't put up a video in a while, and I guess this video is... Alright, so the title of this video is Did Freedom Destroy America? Did freedom destroy America? Alright. I just thought of that. Actually, I thought of that. That's been on my mind for a while, actually, all right? And you guys could probably say, say that's impossible. That's not, how would those two things, freedom destroying America, freedom is America, how did, that's not even a plausible thought. But let me tell you this. All right, ever since the internet became a thing till this year, America has been the freest it's ever been in the history of its existence. Now, I know a lot of people are like, I watch the videos, I go on the internet, I do, I see the articles about surveillance in America, the government, Big Brother, having hands everywhere they have hands in everything you do. But here's the thing. All right. It's every single person in this country has the ability to go online and voice their opinion. That's never happened ever, and make a difference. And making a difference is the important part of that whole entire thought process. All right. So freedom of speech, freedom without having the ability to make a difference nullifies that freedom. All right. So basically, America, you could say, the freedom of speech was part of the original Constitution, right? So, people will argue that America has always had freedom of speech, but it's never about that freedom of speech. It's always about the influence in that freedom of speech. And that influence has always existed with the government. It's always existed with huge corporations. It's a whole entire ecosystem of a social structure that pretty much influences society and how they act. And it's only been the last 20 years where fluctuations in the behavior of the American people as a group, as individuals, have pretty much shifted to extremes because of the amount of freedom of speech, the amount of freedom that they have to pretty much put a message out there, congregate a bunch of people, and then go out, protest, make corporations do things for them, make the government do things for them. All right, and that's it's this power has existed, but it has existed in very, very minute, small amounts. All right. If you look back prior to the late 1990s, all right, you guys will notice that American society as a structure have pretty much been that way for the longest time, with minute changes to the structure of society. Very, very, very minute changes, and that it comes over time. All right. It comes over time. The family structure has always been there. The social structure of race, the social structure of religion, the social structure of what you can say, what you can't say, USA, all that stuff. You America first, everybody else second, or white people first, everybody else, down the line. The whole racial caste system that it has existed in this country, the whole entire structure of the American way of life have pretty much been similarly the same, essentially the same since the existence of this country to, up until the time the internet took hold. It's an undeniable factor, right? Obviously, it's changed, it's morphed, but the foundation of that social structure has existed pretty much from the beginning to maybe the late 1990s. All right. Once other groups, other races, other groups had access to the microphone. All right. Once they had access to it, it changed America to it's pretty much pushed society to different extremes, pretty much. All right. So black people right around the late 1990s have pretty much used the media to pretty much push their agenda. And if you guys were back, you guys existed, were conscious back in that period of time, 1990s, 1980s versus 2020, there has been a huge shift as far as the racial caste in this country, solely because of access to the medium, access to the internet, access to a voice, whether it be through music, whether it be through the media. That access of that medium, of that voice, pretty much has, within a span of 20 years, changed America as a country, socially, culturally, etc., more than the last, I would say, since the existence of America to now. Since the existence of this country to like the late 1990s. So you got that wave of changes with the culture of this country as a result of black culture pretty much taking hold in this country. Some of it through coercion, I guess, civil rights coercion. Some of it through civil rights coercion, some of it through a voice that pretty much influenced society to change in certain ways. Well, a lot of it through civil rights coercion, civil rights organizations, NAACP with the help of ADL, all those groups, Jesse Jackson, etc. All right. So that was one wave. All right. The second wave, pretty much, LGBTs, the gays, they locked into that, because, if blacks gain power through those means, then every other group should be able to gain powers through those means too. I mean, it's only fair. All right. You use civil rights. You used a voice that pretty much speaks to the community of people with the general consensus of that group to convene in certain places to protest. But with the advent of the new media, the internet, with the advent of social media, they don't have to do that anymore as far as protesting is concerned. They protest online. If they don't like something, you're going to hear it. You're going to hear it, whether it be a particular viewpoint from one single person or a corporation that puts out an advertisement that doesn't fit, that looks negatively towards whatever group it is or whatever representation of the person who represents that subgroup, etc., etc. Okay. So after them, the trans, I'm going to put them as a whole different group of people. And then women's rights groups, now that we're, over the last couple of years, anti-fat shamers, the Me Too movement, I guess Asian Americans, Muslims, Latino groups, gamers. I mean, it's pretty much branched out as far as group identity is concerned. All right, it's now bigger than race for the most part. All right, we're talking about like differences in gender, differences in your community. You got car communities, you got celebrity communities, you got gossiping communities, you got gamer communities, whatever have you. They're just communities now, okay? It used to be the whole racial thing. That was the main, pretty much the main forces involved as far as, society was concerned. But it's now branched off into subgroups, subgroups of communities at this point. All right, it's this country, as far as the voice of the people, has never been more free. And yet what happens to this country, you're getting fractionalization on the most micro scale. Fractionalization. All right, it used to be when you had 3 networks and a society that was pretty much predominantly white. Society pretty much worked one way. All right, so it gets dictated by generations. It gets dictated by social norms. It gets dictated by the U.S. media. It gets dictated by all those forces. Pretty much sends out one single message to everybody in this country. All right. Now, I'm not saying that was good. I'm not saying that was bad, but there was a cohesive identity in this country. Obviously, certain races and groups benefited more than others, obviously. But there was a cohesive identity in this country. All right. People thought the same, knew what was up, as far as social norms were concerned, etc., etc. There was an American identity, so to speak. I guess there was an American identity, whatever that was. Maybe that was just a majority white identity. But whatever that was, there was one single direction this country was headed, whether it would be good, whether it was good or bad. There was one single direction. And that pretty much fractionalized in the late 90s when everybody, was given their freedom. As far as, the internet is concerned, everybody now has a voice to make a difference. All right. Just because you have freedom of speech doesn't mean that it means anything if you can't make a difference. Like, if you're in a crowd of people and you have an idea and you want to tell everybody else that idea, but that one guy on the hood of that car has a microphone, and that's the only thing that anybody can hear outside of the 3 or 4 people around you, your message is not worth anything. It's not worth anything. Even though you have freedom of speech, I don't like this, I don't like that. You're telling the person next to you, wow, this guy has a microphone, huge speakers, and all they could hear pretty much is what that dude is saying, versus you standing there next to 3 people, and those 3 people might have heard you, but it's not going to make a difference because it's not going to go anywhere. Nobody else heard you, and everybody else listened to that guy with the microphone. That guy with the microphone is pretty much the government, the U.S. government, the social norms that has existed for generations and generations. The U.S. media, which pretty much promotes those racial norms, those social norms. the school system, which pretty much reinforces those social norms, etc., etc. All right. So we are in a period where there is unprecedented access to freedom of speech, which pretty much equates to unlimited access to freedom. All right. I don't care what anybody says as far as, if the government is watching you doing this, doing that. The government does not care about most of the people in this country as far as what they're doing. Unless you're that one person, or you're the few people who are pretty much the focal point of a certain viewpoint that actually affects society. All right. So we are in a time where all of us has a voice. All right. So one person goes into the internet and says, I don't like this. Some other person sees that. They're in agreement. I don't like this. And then you get like a whole glob of people. I don't like this. It's not good. This is all right. This is not good. Okay. So you have the ability to affect. This is the one time in the history of this country where just a small group have the ability to affect the social norms of this country. All right. Of any other time, socialism, anarchy could exist if you get enough people to voice that out a certain way and convince. And you guys have the medium to do it. There is the medium to do it. It's called the internet. All right. But back to my point about America, how freedom and freedom of speech has pretty much destroyed this country. So if this current period of the internet has given every single person in this country a voice that makes a difference, versus previous to that where you had freedom of speech, but it's not just about freedom of speech. It's about what you can do with that freedom of speech, how much influence you have. So if you were to compare these two periods, that period before the late 1990s, before the internet kind of, pretty much evolutionized from where it was to now, as a medium, as a communication medium, there really wasn't that much freedom as far as influencing, changing social norms, etc., going out and just influencing people. There wasn't. So my point is, if this is the greatest period of freedom and freedom of speech, that must mean that previous to the 1990s, that whole freedom and freedom of speech thing was just an idea for the most part. It was just an idea. All right. It was just an idea. Obviously, you can have your opinions, but you're going to ostracize yourself back then if you had an opinion that was outside those social norms. You're going to ostracize yourself. You're going to be called crazy. You're going to be called a troublemaker. You're going to be called a lot of different things, and you won't matter, after voicing those opinions. So if the government back then, if the media back then had control over what you thought, etc., what society thought, pretty much that freedom of speech was just an idea. It didn't exist the way it exists today. It had no importance. So I guess what I'm saying is, this is the freest this country has been. 2020, over the last couple years, over the last 20 years, this is the freest that everybody has been in the history of this country. And this is the thing that's going to destroy this country. Ironically, is this going to be the thing that destroys this country? Ironically, because it fractionalizes everything. I mean, there are subgroups. It micro-fractionalizes. It's not even fractionalization based on 3 or 4 groups. This is fractionalization on pretty much every single level. Like there's a difference between a cracked window versus if you took a hammer and you smashed a window and it goes into like a gazillion pieces. That's what I'm talking about. We're talking about fractionalization of this country on every single level. All right? Good or bad. I think I read somewhere that somebody famous once said that the only thing that could destroy this nation is from within. And that's what you're seeing. Now, I'm not making this video with any kind of propaganda or agenda for certain groups, against certain groups. I'm not that kind of person. If you guys are watching any of my videos, I'm pretty much for the facts. I'm pretty much laying out the facts. All right. I don't really care for liberals, conservatives. I don't care for group identity. I don't care for race identity. I don't care for any of that stuff. All right. I consider myself a humanist. I consider myself somebody who identifies himself as a human being and not a race or group or gender. None of that stuff. I'm a human being. I'm going to look at certain things. I'm going to look at everything with an eye, right down the middle, as fair as I can see things. All right. That's probably why I don't get as many subscribers as I probably should have or could have or whatever. All right. It's because I've had subscribers subscribe to me and then I do videos and these subscribers unsubscribe to me because the viewpoint that I lay out is different from theirs, or it was kind of similar to theirs on one video. And then look, all right, I'm not for your race. I'm not for your religion. I'm not for, whatever subgroup you are. I'm like for everybody. All right. I'm for everybody. You're either against everybody or you're for everybody. Don't do the selective racism thing where you're good of your group identity and then you go out and you go out and you go and be biased towards other groups or being microaggressive, being micro racist on the low. That's not the way it works, guys. All right. We're at a time where you do that, you're going to get called out. I'm going to call you out if you do that. All right. I'm not for identity politics. I am not for identity politics. All right. I am a human being. That's what I identify myself as. You guys do not need to know, what I am or what I stand for the right thing. All right. Not even the right thing. I think I stand for the facts, the truth. All right. But back to this video. As I was saying, this country is now so fractionalized that there is no identity in this country. There is none. Absolutely no identity as, there's like 360 million Americans. There is no cohesive identity in this country, and it's a fact. Because, ironically, freedom is the thing that killed this country. What do you guys think about that? How ironic is that when you think about that this country is quote unquote home of the brave, land of the free, yet the one thing that has resulted in destroying this country, putting it on its knees over the last 20 years, has been the one thing that it prides itself on, which is freedom. Which I could say the same about capitalism. I'm going to do another video about how capitalism actually destroyed America over the last 20 years to 30 years. It's ironic, isn't it? I mean, think about that. It's so ironic.